7. Hopefully this works. I'll know in a second.
Nice early start for you, Steve,
Yeah.
on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, I've been waking up early though, so it's all good.
Good. Do you work Sunday usually? Do you go are you at the range today?
No, Sunday's day off.
Okay, very good.
I spoke to Steve this morning, my time, but it was Steve's evening time. It probably seems a long time ago now, but it was still the same day for me.
Yeah, I've had a good sleep since then.
It's been a long day. I started coaching 14 hours ago. But it's all good fun. First day back, so got a bit of energy today, which is good. So it looks like
You've been back teaching a little while, Steve? You've been back at the range a while? Or?
Probably about 6 weeks now.
Oh, that's quite a long time.
Yeah, maybe 4 to 6 weeks, something like that.
Did you stop for a long while? Many weeks? Yeah.
Yeah, 2 months. Looks like I started back up in May 12th.
Okay.
So what is today? Yeah, so that's 6 weeks.
That's quite a way. That's quite a way back. Quite a way back.
Yeah, and a lot of the other courses in our area were open even before that.
So how long were you shut down for?
A
month?
February. Yeah, no more than that.
Wow.
Probably mid-February, something like that.
Oh, that's a lot earlier than us. We didn't shut down until April.
Yeah, I think that's what ended up happening here. When we kind of kept going longer than most, and then we sort of ended up taking longer to get back to normal.
Looks like March 14th was my last day.
Cool.
Okay, guys. It's 10 o'clock here in Singapore. I'm joined today with my guest host, Rob, as always. Thanks again, Rob, for joining me. Nice shirt, nice hat. Supporting the brand. Got the Stack and Tilt shirt on. And today we're joined by a special guest from the West Coast of America. And it's very early there right now. We've got Steve Holmes. So thanks, Steve, for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. I think this is episode 6 now, and we're probably going to take a little break after this episode because we're back to work now. But I think in the first episode, which was a few weeks ago now, we're discussing the Stack and Tilt swings and the best swings on tour, the best Stack and Tilt golf swing. I think the question was one of the viewers asked us. And Rob mentioned your swing. So we'll be talking a little bit about that today. So it's finally great to meet you and have a chat with you. So thanks for coming on. I do really appreciate it.
Yeah, this will be fun. Looking forward to it.
So the agenda today, we're going to have a chat with Steve and find out a little bit about his background, how he got into coaching, playing, Stack and Tilt. We're going to talk a little bit about the DVDs because he's on the Stack and Tilt DVDs, if some of you guys out there have seen the DVDs. I think we're also going to chat a little bit about Brandl's comments that he talks about this week. Sure, some of you had a lot of messages on social media. I think Rob has as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And of course, we're going to open up for questions. So if you guys have got any questions to myself, we've got Rob or Steve, just post them in the chat. I can see we've got Steve DeMarco's on. How's Steve?
Hey, DeMarco.
So first of all, Steve, tell us a little bit about your background and how you started golf initially. How did you get into golf?
I think I just started getting a little too small for the other sports that I liked, like basketball and football. So my math teacher was our golf coach in high school. So he had a little sign up in his, and I happened to be, he was my teacher at the time. So I saw a little thing that said golf tryouts today. I'm like, what's this thing about? Yes, I'll go try it. I think I shot like a 65 or something for 9 holes, and I was on the team. So I was like, sweet. And I fell in love with it pretty quickly because it didn't really matter how big you were or how fast or anything like that. And so I just fell in love with it immediately and just became a junkie like overnight.
Have you always lived in California?
Yeah, born and raised here. Actually, like 4th generation in California, which is somewhat rare.
It looks like a great place to live. The weather looks amazing. You showed me yesterday. Slightly jealous. It's so hot and humid here in Singapore. It'd be nice to
deal with the humidity. So I don't feel for you there. Yeah, we have nice dry weather. It'll start getting hot here, so another couple weeks when it's 105 here.
Yeah, that's pretty warm, I suppose. So
Yeah.
you started playing golf. What sort of age was that when you first started?
I was 14 and a half, something like that. So
Oh, okay,
freshman.
so yeah, so you not too early. We've got kids these days that starting
Yeah,
3
they'll
and
start
4
at
years old.
4 years old. Yeah, I've got
Sort of Tiger
girl,
Woods generation.
yeah, I think she's 8, and I think I've been working with her for 4 years. So
Yeah,
yeah, there definitely seems to be starting a lot earlier. Yeah, so I fell in love with the game, and I really fell in love with also the golf swing pretty early on. Um, I don't know, something about it just kind of fascinated me, and I got fascinated with like Ben Hogan and uh, George Knudson, and these kind of world-renowned ball strikers.
yeah,
Not so much Jack Nicklaus, although I did read Jack Nicklaus's book. So one of the first weeks, I said, who's good at this game? And everyone said, well, Jack Nicklaus is the best ever. So I went and bought his book. And I remember I got to about the second or third chapter, and I was talking about ball flights and how they curve. So I go, oh, this is going to be a great example. So of course it said the path starts the ball in a direction, and the club face is, where it ends up. I'm like, I'm going to go
yeah,
try this. So I'll never forget it. Drove to the range that I'm currently teaching at. I remember the mat that I was on. Like, I'm gonna try these fades. All right, so point the club face at the target, and then swing to the left to start it over there, and
yeah,
immediate banana slices off to the right. I'm like, dang, that didn't work. Maybe I need to swing more to the left, and then I'm hitting the fence on the right. I'm like, man, those fades are hard. Let me try the draw. So I start the club face at the target, swing out to the
yeah.
right, and I'm trees on the left, and I'm like, man, that Nicklaus was good.
Yeah,
I can't
that's why he was so good, right? You probably tell everyone
Yeah.
the false information.
Yeah, right. I like it.
That's why he dominated for so long. And some
Yeah.
people to this day still believe that theory of the club path sort of starting the ball
Yeah.
direction. I know
Yeah.
Chambliss mentioned it a few
Yeah, I
weeks
think
ago.
I think that's on Brandl's list of things he thinks that controls the ball flight.
Unfortunately,
Definitely, yeah.
a long list of misguided information, but that's on him.
So did you take lessons, Steve, when you were young? You
Yeah,
just
I did. Kind of pretty early on. I remember my first instructor. I have no idea what he taught me. It's just basically probably not how to suck completely. Um, but after that Nicholas book, um, I kind of went on an endeavor just to hit the ball straight.
yeah,
But I figured if I was hitting it straight, it didn't matter if I missed the club face or the pass. So I got decent at hitting it pretty straight. But yeah, so I had some instructors. I got lucky and I got a really good one pretty early on. A
yeah,
guy named Randy Peterson, who's down at Callaway Golf now. He's in charge of their R&D down there. But then we had I don't even know if it was a falling out, but I tore my ACL in college, so I took about 6 or 8 months off. Actually, probably closer to a year. We just kind of fell out of touch there. So then I went on another crusade of trying to find some instructors, and kind of got led down some maybe not the best paths. I went to a golf machine guy, and it got super laggy, super knee drivey. So I had to
yeah,
hit 1 7 iron, 150. Then the next one I'd hit 180, and I said, man, I can't play like this. So I went to a different guy, and he was pretty good. He was very anti-draw, so everything was like handle back and cup your wrist coming through. So then I got good at either pulling the ball or fading the ball. And about that time, I was on the nationwide tour, which is now the Corn Ferry Tour,
yeah.
and shipped and putted like better than anybody. Like I was always looking for Aaron Badley because I knew he was the best putter and chipper, and always trying to take him on. It was like, let's go practice. I'm gonna go whip your ass. But I would literally just pound the left side of the golf course, just pull, and I had no idea how to get rid of it. And it just drove me insane.
So how long did it take you to go from starting as a 14-year-old to the nationwide tour?
Let's see, I started in 87 and then nationwide on 2003. And then I had maybe a year and a half break for a tour ACL on there from basketball in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was very lucky because early on I also worked at a golf course, and I thought my job was to hit the golf ball. So I would just go around the perimeter of the driving range, just banging balls off of the fence. So I got really good at punching keeping my weight on my front foot. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I just knew that if I hit the ball first, I didn't have to do it so many times. So it was actually really, really good practice. So it was just like flying wedge practice all day long, which was
That's awesome.
Plus, I was just psycho about it. So, I was practicing all day, every day. I got pretty good pretty quick. So, like, first year I was in the hundreds, and then maybe mid 80s, second year, then mid 70s, and then low 70s, high 60s, my fourth year. And that's when I started going into college.
So what's the difference between the Nationwide Tour and the PGA Tour in terms of the level of the golfers? So I know you played a couple of events on the PGA Tour, is that right?
Yeah, I played two. The first one was at Justin Timberlake out in Vegas, and I had Monday qualified in. And I was hitting it really, really well. I think that week I led in both fairways and greens hit, and putted like a donkey, so missed the cut. It was crazy. I was playing with Cameron. What is his name? Can't think of his last name. I think his last name is Cameron. Anyway, he finished second in the tournament. I'm playing with him the first 2 days, and I'm inside of him like 30 holes out of 36. But meanwhile,
Wow.
he's in the final group on Sunday, and I'm packing my bag going home. I'm like, you might want to putt a little bit here, dude. I was missing him from 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, just everywhere. It was a disaster, but hitting it really, really well. And I was fortunate enough to have Mike and Andy out there that week, so it was a really good week.
That's awesome. So on the subject of Mike and Andy, how did you first meet them? Obviously, that was well before you were on that 2010, was that? So when did you meet Mike and Andy? A few years before that?
Yeah, I met them. I've been friends with Charlie Wee for a number of years. We played at rivaling high schools. He went to Westlake, I went to Newbury Park, which are just kind of right next to each other. So we got friendly, and then he was playing on the PGA Tour, and we are just playing one week. And I go, man, Charlie, you're hitting it really well. I think I can. And also, I was kind of watching the changes that he was making over the years, because he got with some. He had that same instructor for a number of years, a guy named Jason. And I went to him for a little bit, but it just didn't work out for me. I think there was a language barrier there. And Charlie always hit it pretty good. And then he was working with another guy that maybe a Mac kind of disciple, and he was hitting a little further, but he was hitting it pretty crooked. And then he met Mike and Andy somewhere along the way. And so I was playing a lot with Charlie, and he said, hey, you need to come watch these guys. I've got a lesson with them at a local golf course over at TPC Valencia. So I said, if you don't mind, let me come out and watch your session. And it was really nice because it was just Mike, Andy, Charlie, and myself, and we were out on the range for like 8 hours. And just listening to Mike and Andy describe the golf swing and how they were talking to Charlie, I was like, man, there's something really here. I gotta be a fly in the wall as much as I can with these guys. And even just listening to them, I started kind of working on it in my own swing, and I'm like,
yeah,
way better. I can see where this is going on. So then,
so at the time you were on the Nationwide Tour.
No, the first time I was on Nationwide was in 2003. So this is probably more like 2006. When I was on Nationwide, I chipped and putted like a demon.
Yeah.
But hit it pretty mediocre at best. So this is about 2006, 7, somewhere in there. And I was lucky enough to have Mike and Andy maybe the week after, or maybe somewhere in that timeline, just to myself for 2 days, which was like,
wow.
I'd never had my eyes open so much. In the first like hour of it, I was like, why has nobody ever told me this before? And it wasn't like I wasn't looking, but maybe I wasn't smart enough to figure it out myself. But I was like, why is this information not out there? And I remember asking Andy, I said, have you told anybody else about this? He's like, no, I didn't tell everybody. I'm like, dang it. I wish this was like our own little club or little secret. Can you keep this secret? He's like, no, we got a book coming out, a DVD. I'm like, oh, dang it. Just purely wanting it for myself.
That's awesome. On the subject of the DVD, you're talking about the first DVD, right?
Yeah.
That would have been, I would imagine. But on the subject of the DVD, Steve is obviously a very good player, and he was invited to take part in DVD number 2, which is you guys can see on the screen here. This is Steve in action.
Another draw, right?
Another draw, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the those days when you were filming this DVD.
Say that again.
Just tell us a little bit about the couple of days that you were filming this DVD. Like,
Yeah, it was nice because we had a lot of guys out there. It was the same week as the San Diego tournament at Torrey Pines there, so a lot of the tour players were in town. So it was really cool. I think it was about 3 days worth. Getting to talk to everybody, getting to see it live, and there were a lot of other instructors there too. So it was like this great big powwow, and we had all the bells and whistles with the force plates, and it was a really fun week.
we're going to get into this a little bit later with the weight and stuff like that. But just first of all, like I said, Rob mentioned it before. I think great swing, Steve. Is it still look the same?
Yeah, I would say looking at this, I have a little bit more, like if we go to P4 here, I have a little bit more extension now.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things actually that I've been working on with Mike and Andy for quite a while. And interesting story, I qualified for my first PGA Tour event, the Shriners there. And it was Wednesday night and we're on the range. And I said, man, some of these guys hit it really far. What are some things that I can do to hit it a little farther myself? And so we start talking about the extension of the spine on the backswing, and specifically for me, the hips also. And so I started doing it, and it was very, very uncomfortable because there was like a new section of my swing that I just had no idea what was going on up there. And I asked Mike, I said, when should I do this like extension thing? And he goes, only when you want to hit it higher and farther. And I said, well, Mike, that's like all the time. And he goes, well, maybe you want to do it all the time then. So,
that sounds exactly like what Mike would say, right?
So here I am Thursday morning, 8 a.m., first tee time, first tour event. And I'm like, all right, you just got to practice, you got to do it. I want to hit this ball higher and farther. So thankfully I had the courage to what felt like the longest backswing ever for me and just pumped it down the middle. I'm like, I think I'm going to do more of this.
That's awesome,
hit it really well. Because a lot of times when people are taking lessons, sometimes they'll have a fear of, oh, this isn't going to work out immediately, or it's going to take 6 months. And I just don't buy that. I don't buy that philosophy at all. That if you're doing the right things and in the right order, that you should see immediate results. If your wrists are going this through the ball and you're slicing it, and then the next one you're going like that through the ball, you should see the ball drawing pretty quickly. It shouldn't take you 6 months to do it. And that's one part with Mike and Andy that I've always really liked, is the idea that this shouldn't take us 6 months. If you're on the seventh hole, you just sliced it for the first 7 holes. You get on that 8th tee, you do something different. You put a different input into the system, and the ball's going to draw. And that's what I've liked the most for myself, is the immediate results, and also just the depth of knowledge that those guys have. You can hit any shot you want. Like I would watch Mike and Andy doing these clinics, and I thought Mike was like a magician. I'm like, how is he doing this? What sorcery is this guy up to? He sold his soul to the devil. And then the more and more I watched, I'm like, okay, I see what he's doing here a little bit. And then he explained it to me, and I'm like, oh, it's actually kind of easy. You put your ball forward, handle back, weight back, and the ball slices. Magic. Right? You put your weight forward and your handle forward and ball back, and magically the ball draws. And it's like, you open the club face, now you got to push. So the veil had been lifted off of their secret, and I've loved it every day since.
Yeah, I certainly love the DVDs. So guys, if you're watching the DVDs, this is the Stack and Tilt 2.0. There's 4 parts to the DVD. You got the model, which is like the clinic, I think, which is the first DVD. Then you've got the model, then the driver, and then drills and lessons, I believe, is the order. And I think a lot of people don't know that the Stack and Tilt system is based around the driver. A lot of people think that they struggle to hit the driver, but the system is based around the driver. So anyone that wants to sort of learn a lot more about the system, I'd always suggest people to read the books, watch the DVDs, get in contact with an authorized instructor, whether that's Rob, Steve, or myself, anyone that's in your area or online. It's really going to help you in your development of your golf. So I think it's awesome, mate, that you're on the DVD. So
it was a fun week. Yeah, what I love about the system especially is the number one, the simplicity of it. I mean, they've got it down to 10 words, and really, if you're a beginning golfer, especially, and you follow those 10 words, you're going to get better. I mean, it's just simple as that. But also the depth, and that's what I'm always impressed with watching Mike and Andy and Rob and you guys teach, is that you can take a dead set beginner and give them a good foundation, and within 10-15 minutes, they might not have the precision of it, but they've got the form. And then meanwhile, they can go, 2 stalls down and work with somebody like a Aaron Badley or a Charlie Wee or a Troy Madison, say, a top ranked tour player, and not necessarily use those same words, but have the same base and being able to build off it. I think of it like of a pyramid. You've got this base and then everything on top of it. And that's what I've always loved the most about is the simplicity of it, but also the depth. And I haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet. I have yet to extinguish Andy's knowledge. It's crazy. Every time I watch him, every time I meet him, I'm always like, man, I didn't think about that. God, I can't believe how every time I see him, I learn something new. So I'm like, maybe I just need to take a loan out and just go follow this guy around for a couple of years, and maybe we can get to the bottom of it. But I haven't hit bottom yet. I mean, there's just so much depth there.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Rob would agree as well. You've
completely. Yeah, I've been fortunate to spend hundreds of hours with him now, and attend multiple network trainings, maybe 30, 40 network trainings over the years. And as you say perfectly there, Steve, every single time I spend time with Andy, you learn something new. You always get something new. His knowledge is frightening. It's so deep. But again, to your point, I've watched him teach, and if the person in front of him might be a high handicap golfer, they don't get all of that stuff. They get the explanation and then a simple feel or drill to help them improve. And as you say, again, improve quickly. Like, I completely agree with you on the whole idea that it shouldn't take 6 months, 6 weeks, or 6 days to make a very sort of big change in what you do with your pattern. It should be almost immediate, because with the model and the understanding of how it all fits together, you have an expectation of what the ball's going to do. And as you say, if you change a wrist motion, the ball's going to behave differently. And I think that impresses me when I watched originally in the early days, watching Andy and Mike teach. They knew what was going to happen before they told someone what to do. And that builds a level of confidence in the person in front of you. Like, this is what this ball's going to do, and it does it. And they're like, oh wow, you knew it was going to do that. And then so it validates the information and gives them huge credibility.
Yeah. I noticed there's something you do with your students, Rob, as well. You would
I've learned from the best, mate. I just, all the good stuff is stolen, I just
make no bones about it. There isn't a whole lot that I've come up with on my own. It's all just completely stolen. I maybe reworded a little bit, but it's all stolen. It might take 6 weeks or 6 months to perfect something, but you should be able to do it pretty quickly.
Yeah. Agreed.
Just the questions, guys. So Steve DeMarco, looks like you were hitting it great in the video. That was his comment.
Yeah.
In the DVD, you were hitting it pretty good that week.
Don't let him fool you either. That guy's a really good ball striker. We play it's no longer going on, but we used to play in an annual kind of a pro-am, and I was the pro and he was the am. But half the time, I think I played 4 or 5 years in a row, and I think 4 of the years he beat me like straight up. He has like 7 or 8 birdies, and I'm out there just like 2 birdies. I'm like, man, who is this guy? So DeMarco's a really, really good player, and he's recently switched to left-handed, which I can relate to. Sometimes you go a little crazy in this game, and his lefty swing is actually really.
I've seen it. Yeah, it's awesome. I was really impressed.
Don't tell him it's better than his righty, but it's pretty darn good.
I think technically it's actually a bit better, but he's obviously hasn't practiced it as much and drilled it in.
Yeah.
We've also got another question from Megan. So she says, is the 2.0 DVD just the newer version, or is it different material from the original DVD?
I would say it's the information is very similar, the same, but there's a little bit more depth on the 2.0, and there's a little bit more of kind of going through the
stuff
and comparing one to another.
Yeah, I think it's good to watch both. Watch the first DVD and watch the second DVD. That certainly you've got more technology being used in 2.0 in terms of the 3D stuff and the force plates.
The visual cues and stuff like that, it's just a little easier to follow and a little easier to understand. Might shed some light on some subjects.
I wonder if there's going to be a 3.0. I wonder.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I think, Andy and Mike have been kind of pigeonholed that, oh, you guys only teach people how to hit, big draws, and it's like, no, you can teach them how to hit high or low. That's one of the knocks on Stack and Tilt all the time is that low ball hitter, and it's like I don't find that at all. The last time I worked with Andy is trying to get my driver to not be so high.
I remember in the DVD with Mike when he's hitting those shots, and he's got the 4-iron, I think, off the back foot, and he's swinging at 0 degree angle of attack and just hitting this massive high draw off his back foot with the handle forward. But there's certainly a lot of misconceptions, right, about the system. I know we all know that. That's one of the reasons why I try and get this information out there for people that don't really understand, or they've not been listening to the right information, or maybe something that's maybe not quite correct. Fortunately,
in today's day and age, political and also with golf, there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily true out there. Guys like
We'll get into that in a little while. Another comment.
We've only got an hour. We've only got an hour. Imagine how long that could go on for, right? And then...
So that's a can of worms there. Let's leave that one shut.
So another question in the chat here from Todd. I bought the Stack and Tilt 2.0 DVD set, watched each DVD about 3 times. First round out, I shot my lowest score ever of 77 and hit 11 of 14 fairways. So I think that's pretty impressive. So it's not for the driver, no. Even though it's based around the drive of the system.
Yeah, right. And that's a very common story where people make quick changes and they have quickly shoot their best round.
Yeah. I know I get a lot of comments, and so does Rob on our channel, of people making massive changes. And even just in a few weeks, right? A lot of people in this lockdown period have been watching more videos and they've come across our stuff, and it's really making a difference, which is great. And obviously all credit to everyone in the system, and obviously Andy and Mike.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, really what that does is that grows the game. The better the instructors, the better the information, the more concise it is, the more digestible it is, the more people can understand it, the more they can perform it, the more they have fun on the golf course. And that's really what it comes down to. We're trying to become great instructors, but we're also trying to grow the game for the future too. When guys like Chambly make comments like that, I just, it's just not growing the game, And I would make the argument that Mike and Andy have probably had a bigger influence on not only the instructional world, but the golf world than maybe anybody in the history of the game.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. In terms of your instruction, Steve, you work with a lot of pros, amateur golfers, a mixture of abilities.
Yeah, I like to do a wide range. I like my favorite is probably the beginning golfer, because it's just a blank slate, and you can mold them pretty quickly and see changes really quickly, versus somebody like a tour player or a very top ranked player. They've got very ingrained habits, and sometimes it's a little harder to get those to tweak a little bit more. But I have maybe 4 or 5 girls that are playing either LPGA or Symetra Tour. Not so many on the men's side. Some really good juniors that are coming up. I've got some kids that are starting to beat me on the golf course now, and I'm not very happy about it. got to get back to practicing. And in one way, I'm not happy about it. The other way, I'm like, this is great. If they can stand on my shoulders, that's awesome. I always say, if you can beat me, you can play at any college, anywhere. So it gives them something kind of shoot for. And unfortunately, these kids hit it so far now. I'm having a little more trouble beating them, and then they're starting to pick my brain a little bit more. So they've got a little bit more knowledge. It's all passed on information.
Yeah. So do you still get to play a little bit yourself?
Yeah, I'm a member of the PGA, so I try and do. They have a lot of like Monday tournaments, one dayers, and I've been still playing those, but really haven't been playing much. I've been doing a lot more teaching these last couple of years, but I'm 48 now, so I've got kind of a 2-year window to kind of get my stuff together for. I'm going to give the Champions Tour a little bit of a run. So
Awesome.
I'd imagine this year I'll play a little bit more, and then the following year I'll play definitely more, and then probably the last 6 months I'll probably just play full time, and I probably won't teach much, just to give it a legitimate shot. Especially with Senior Tour, Champions Tour, you got a pretty small window to get it done there.
Yeah. So in terms of the players you work with, you mentioned you coach some LPGA players, is that right?
Yeah, I've been working with Louise Ritterstrom since I also volunteer at UCLA. My wife's the assistant coach there. So we've been very fortunate. Those girls are really, really good. I'm always so impressed I'm more impressed watching them than the guys half the time. Because guys just, we're all just pound it out there and wedge it up. But the girls, I think, have so much more. I think sometimes they're technically a little bit more sound than the guys, and it's a little closer to the amateur golfer, as far as what they can do.
I saw that on your, you post a few of these on your Instagram page, right? Some of the players you work with, and
yeah. For some reason, I've been pretty dark there in the last 3 months, where I haven't done anything on Instagram or Facebook. Get it back on there eventually, but I post all their stuff on there. But been very fortunate to work with a couple of number ones in the world, and half the time I'm learning more from them. I always like to kind of get a feel for. I always ask them kind of the same question: how'd you get here? When they get to UCLA, so I wanted to know how they practice, how much they practice, what tournaments they played, that kind of stuff. And I've learned a lot about that, and I keep on passing that on to my juniors, and I try and. I do the Operation 36 for my golf academy, which is Ryan Daly's stuff, which is awesome. If you're doing any junior golf stuff, you need to do that. And it's a really good template, but I'll have them come in and play with some of them during the classes. And I try and organize my classes around kind of how the girls practice to be number one in the world. All right, we need to be doing this in putting. We need to be doing this in chipping. We need to be doing this in hitting. And we've got all kinds of games set up to actually have them kind of perform skills rather than just out there practicing P1, P2. Especially with juniors. Important too. Yeah, well, they're very important. But with juniors, especially, I look at it more skill building than anything.
So just explain to the viewers, Steve, what Operation 36 is.
And I do it with the adults also, but the premise is, or the goal is, to shoot 36 or better for 9 holes. So if you take a beginning golfer, a junior golfer, and you put them on the tee box, they're going to shoot, 70 for 9 holes. Nobody wants to sit through that. So what we do is we start them from 25 yards, and as soon as they can shoot 36 or better, then they move to 50 yards. Same thing, 36 or better, they move to 100 yards, then 150, 200, and then finally the tee box. And it's been a really good way of kind of laying out how to play golf. All right, this is what we need to do from putting. This is how you read a green. This is what we're doing with chipping. And by the time we get to 100 yards, all right, we're making a full swing, or 50 yards, we're making a full swing. So now it's, you get in. It's almost like a gateway of instruction. All right, now to play from 50 yards, you have to hit the ball relatively solid. So, we start talking about where their weight is and their handle is and what they need, where they need to be hitting the ground, that kind of stuff, to keep getting them to go each level. And then by the time you get to 150 or 200 yards, now you're talking a lot more about hitting the ball farther and controlling the curve, and maybe a little bit more tightening up around the green. So it's given me a really good template. So I've got 2 templates going. I've got 3 template from Op 36, how to teach a beginning golfer and how to get them to excel, how to get them to tee box shooting good scores, and then got the stack and tilt system of how to, and they integrate really nicely. And then recently been talking to James Ridyard a lot about the short game stuff. So I've got a little bit of a template there. So I feel like I've got a pretty good template of not only how to play golf, but also how to teach golf right now.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and I'm really trying to kind of give back and try and grow the game as much as I can. So that's why I like the newer golfers, because they're going to be the ones that are playing in 10 or 15 years, especially the juniors. And if we don't have those, then it's really going to disappear. Just because
your wife, she's a coach as well.
Yeah, she's the assistant coach there at UCLA. She played for them for 4 years. She played professionally for maybe 10 minutes or so. And then the head coach, who is still the head coach, Carrie Forsyth, was actually pregnant with twins, and she was having a little trouble with labor. So she called, we were living in Phoenix at the time, called my wife and said, you want to be a coach? And she said, yeah, that'll be great. Okay, you're head coach starting tomorrow. Let's go. Right.
Wow.
So she got thrown into it pretty quickly, and she's been there a good probably 13 years now. And I've been volunteering there probably for 7 or 8. And like I say, it's really, really been fortunate to work with a lot of really good players, a lot of number ones, some national championship teams, all kinds of All-Americans. It's been really great. And, it's funny when you watch the really good players, the All-Americans, I always say they do more things similar than they do different. And one thing I've always noticed with the really good players at that level is that just not many of them move off the ball very much. Whether they call it, whatever they call it, it's basically at the end of the day, a centered pivot with the weight slightly forward. They already do that, and that's why they're so good. So that's one thing that's been kind of stuck out to me, is how many similarities there are to these golf swings, especially the good ones.
Yeah.
I think when you get into the poorer players now, there's a lot more variables going on there, and that's probably why they're a poorer player.
Yeah. In the chat here, we've got a question from Steve DeMarco again. Steve teaches down the range from George Gankas. Can you explain the difference of the style of instruction?
Well, I've known George for a number of years. We used to caddy together over at Sherwood Country Club back in the day, and we used to play a little junior golf together. The first part is George and I are just very different people. I'm more reserved. I probably have a smaller group of friends, where he's a lot more outgoing. He does better with like a big set of friends. He seems to have a need for like a lot of people around him. So even just everyday instruction, if you go watch George teach, he's going to have anywhere from 5 to 10 guys around with a cell phone watching him the whole time. Yeah. And that's not my kind of flavor. I prefer more of a one-on-one situation, maybe, a 2-to-1, something like that. But one thing about George is he is a very hard worker. He's put a lot of time and energy into, call it research. There's some things that he says about the swing that I don't really agree with, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if I agree with him. It really just matters what he's giving to his people in front of him. And there's definitely a place for that. One thing with George is, especially at the beginning, he always said he wouldn't work with anybody under a 5 handicap or over a 5 handicap. Wow. And maybe that was one way of just marketing, because he really truly is a master of marketing. And he had a really good team assembled around him for marketing. But I never really liked that part, because it's like, if you're such a good instructor, you should be able to do this for anybody. You should be able to take a beginning golfer, and I'm sure he can, but maybe that was his preference to work with better players. But also at the end of the day, I think George teaches a lot more speed than I do. I think that's one thing that he, let's say his niche in the world. I think there's a couple niches in the world for him. One is to try and hit the ball farther. That's one of his big things. And then also, it's just a different brand, a little bit of, God, what's the right word for it? Just not quite conforming to the country club, call, or like one day I saw him out there teaching in flip-flops and a mink coat, and I was like, what the heck is going on over here right now? Or this dude is really in a mink coat right now teaching golf. That's his flavor, and there's a certain percentage of people out there that are looking for something a little bit, it's almost like God, what was that show? I can't think of it right now, but it's definitely a different vibe there.
He coaches a few guys on the tour, right?
What's that?
He coaches quite a few of the guys on the tour.
Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, I don't follow it very, very much. I saw Padre Carrington down there one day.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's kind of off and on. I think he teaches Matthew Wolff. He's been for a number of years. So, but one thing with players like Matt Wolff and really any number one player in the world is that they're going to be good with you or without you. It's really, at the end of the day, that type of player. It's not the instruction that makes that player. It's the player that makes that player.
Yeah. So while we're on the subject of coaching and other golf coaches or so-called golf coaches, I thought we'd chat a little bit about the comments from Brandel this week. So if any of you guys have heard or not heard what he said that they were talking, I don't know who the other guy was chatting with, but it was on the Golf Channel. And he said that players that lean left can hit good iron shots. This was my problem years ago with this lean left ideology. And then the other guy goes on to say, are you referring to stack and tilt? And he said it ruined careers. It worked through the tour like a cancer, because you can't lean left, stay left, and be a great driver of the golf ball. Which, first of all, obviously, I don't know where these. He always seems to bash stack and tilt, right? I think he's done this a number of times. Certainly, every few months or so, he comes out with these comments, and there's no sort of fact behind it, and it's frustrating as a stack and tilt instructor that you got someone who's so high profile in terms of he's on the Golf Channel and he's saying these negative comments about the stack and tilt and the system when there's no real sort of facts behind it.
Yeah, there's no backing to it whatsoever. There's no facts. And also, I would say it's not even so much the stack and tilt instructors, it's just the golf instructors in general. He's all kinds of instruction, but he specifically bashes stack and tilt as much as he can. And this is a personal thing for him. It's got nothing to do with facts. It's got nothing to do with anything except personal stuff, because they had a little battle on the driving range maybe 15 years ago. And I remember I heard the audio of it, Brandel saying, I will go out of my way to put you guys out of business. And I think that is BS.
Really?
Yeah, that's out there. It's
wow.
Too many people have heard this the recording of them on the driving range, but let's just say Brandel was definitely not in the prettiest light there. So the things he's doing is specifically on a personal level. It's got nothing to do with facts whatsoever, because I'm sure you've got some facts for us. But if you look at the facts of Mike and Andy working with these players, I mean, he took Dustin Johnson. The guy was going to lose his card. Now Dustin Johnson's an incredible name. Same thing with Troy Madison. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, how many times these guys, I have yet to see Andy or Mike give a lesson where they didn't help somebody or have them improve pretty immediately.
So on that subject, I thought you mentioned Troy there. So Troy was part of the DVD with you, 2.0, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, he was smashing those balls. The driving range had a big, on the far end of it, you had to hit it like 350 to get to the top of it. So I was nowhere near it, but Troy hit a couple balls that were like right towards the top of it. And this may have been one of them right here. I mean, he was smashing these balls.
I think one of these swings on the DVDs, Mike says, or Andy says, to put 80% of his weight on the left side and keep it there throughout the whole swing. And I think he hit his longest shot of high speed of the day. I think
it was the longest drive of the day and the fastest speed of the day.
Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you do that with your weight on your left side, right? Don't you have to move your weight to your right side to gain speed? And that's always the I mean, look how much extension he has there on the backswing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So A few stats about Troy. Steve, have you got any stats about Troy? Or was that Rob? Have you got any stats?
Yeah, just from the DVD that I posted it a few days ago on my Instagram. Just the introduction to DVD 3, Troy and Andy and Micah are speaking about their time together and the work they've done. And Troy, within 6 months of working with Mike and Andy, was number 1 in greens and regulation on the PGA Tour. As that's pretty impressive. Not, as Andy says, he says not 2, not 3, not 4, number 1.
Yeah.
And Troy says he's the first season he ever averaged over 300 yards with the driver.
Wow.
So yeah, facts. It's not convenient for plenty of people out there who want to argue, or they have an agenda. I come up against people all the time on Facebook and even now with the YouTube channel becoming more popular, and the vast majority of the comments people are enjoying the content and it's helping their golf, which we want to do.
Exactly.
But you still have people like, yeah, you can't do it with stack and tilt. You can do stack and tilt, but you won't hit it very far. Yeah. And it's just such, it's nonsense, and it's so lazy, right? Just to keep regurgitating stuff that's just so wrong, right? And I can understand why some people do it, because you touched on, Steve, like the golf instruction world. It's a busy place, and
very good. That's a good way of putting it. Great. I love it.
And there's plenty of people out there with an agenda that they've taught a different way, or they teach a different way, and it's important for them that the water remains very muddy, so that golfers are still confused, and confused golfers will look in multiple places for answers and get more confused. Yeah. It's not in their interest for a clear system to be laid out that helps every golfer, regardless of their ability, to hit any shot they could ever want to hit. Higher, yep, we can do that. You want to hit it lower, yep, we can do that. You want to draw it more, yep, we can do that. You want to fade it more, we can do that. I mean, it's not convenient for these people who've got their money, their time invested in their own brand, or a brand of instruction that's different. So there'll always be the people who won't get it. But I think the network of instructors that we have now is getting so big, and that has a critical mass that just doesn't let up, right? Like the dog has got the bone, and we're not going to let it go right anymore. Whereas all these people 10 years ago said stack and tilt wouldn't last 5 minutes. It'd be off the tour. It'd be, no one will do it. And here we are 10 years later with 800 instructors, huge network of students improving daily. That for me is like the legacy, part of the legacy that Andy and Mike have created. Sure.
I don't even think we've seen really the results yet. I think they're still coming. Like people are getting better, but I see it on the college level how just golf swings are looking different.
Yeah.
And I always go, God, that has a little bit of flair to the stack and tilt. Now their instructor might not even know what stack and tilt is, but you can definitely see it changing. You can see a lot greater arm finish. You can see a lot more centered pivots, a lot less people trying to move over to their right side, a lot more flying wedge. I'm seeing in college a bunch, and to be honest, scores are going down. I mean, part of it's the ball going farther and equipment's better, but also instruction is getting better. I mean, golfers are getting better.
I think the good point about this video here of Troy, he's keeping his weight forward, and his angle of attack is very close to 0. It's 0.6 down, when the PGA Tour average is actually 1.5 degrees down. So players think you can get too steep with the stack and tilt swing. Obviously, there's a lot of shallow in pieces, which we've talked about in the past. But he's keeping his weight the most forward, and he's only hitting down half a degree, which is not as much as what the tour players on average do.
118 miles an hour of clubhead speed as well. I mean,
and Nick, you're saying that you can get steep. You can get steep with any swing.
Yeah.
Right. But the key is to understand how to get it shallower. And that's where the system is so important, because, I look at, like, you've got things to draw to pull from that make the ball draw more or less, or hit the ball farther or less. and you can actually, it's almost like a plug and play, right? All right, if someone needs to shallow out more, well, there's pieces that you add to shallow it out. If the angle of attack is too much, it's not because the weight's too far forward. Maybe it's some, the swing direction too far left, or maybe it's some accumulator problem, something like that. But any swing can be too steep. I don't care if it's David Ledbetter or Nick Taylor's or anybody's, right? Anybody's swing can be too steep or too far to the right, too far to the left. But do you have a fix for it? That's really the key. And if you don't have a fix for it, and you don't have a system of fixing it, what's the point? You're just throwing darts. And sometimes you might get lucky and hit the board. Oh yeah, that one worked. But really, you want to have, like you said earlier, you want to have a outcome in your mind before you get there, right? You don't want to just be good, as Andy always says, you don't want to go willy-nilly about it, right? You want to have an actual idea or game plan of how to make this swing differently. Swing too steep, what can we do to shallow it out?
So just going on to some more facts here. I don't know if you can see the chart here. This is Mike Weir career stats. So you can see in the shaded area there. You see this on the screen?
Yeah. Looks good. Yeah.
So you can see in the shaded area.
He's better because he was he must have putted really well during that. And if you look at the stat, that was the orange, he putted his worst and he still had his highest ranking. What?
There you go.
Don't let
shows you, isn't it? So obviously you've got the black line there, which is the world golf rankings. So you can see in the time he started in the stack and tilt era, he was on a decline, but that sort of stabled and gradually moved up the rankings. And then you can see obviously after he left stack and tilt, you can see a big drop off there. And you can see, just like you say, with the driving accuracy and the tee to green, obviously strokes gained much better, but putting not so good. But I think that's always good to have some facts to back up what we're doing. So I think Mike Weir is one of the obvious ones that gets mentioned when he performed his worst under stack and tilt, when you actually do look at the facts, you see that there is definitely some improvement there.
Yeah, and I think stack and tilt gets blamed for his wrist injury a little bit there too, but his wrist injury came well after he was working with Mike and Andy. If I remember, I think it was over at Sherwood in one of those kind of end of year tournaments where he hit a tree root.
That's right.
Must have been stack and tilt ruined him, right? You got Brandel Bamble on there going, oh yeah, ruined Mike Weir, but don't let the facts get in the way of a good story there, Brandel, right? And I understand maybe his need to maybe stir up some controversy, to maybe get some more viewers and stuff like that, but it can't be at the expense of the facts, because like you said earlier, he's got a pretty wide range of audience. He's got millions of viewers there, and he's got a very good opportunity to again grow the game, and I don't think he's doing anything to grow the game there at all.
Not at all.
Right? He's bashing instructors, so now people are already a little bit hesitant going and taking lessons. And then you got this guy buffoon on TV saying, oh yeah, this person ruined him, and nobody out there knows how to teach, and all you really need to do to be a good putter is just go watch YouTube videos. And it's like, what are you talking about, dude? I have no idea what you're talking about. I bet you this guy doing 4 lessons in his life. Now he's going to be telling everybody how to be an instructor, right? You can't take away from the fact that he was a great player, right?
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. Played on the PGA Tour a number of years, and I think he has 1 or 2 wins. Great player, but that has nothing to do with being able to teach golf and how to explain golf. That's a whole different set of skills, right? But meanwhile, he's on there telling everybody this nonsense at the end of the day, and it's really
like with it
growing the game. Let's just say
exactly. I think that's the point. He's not growing the game. One more stats here to look at, guys, is Aaron Baddeley, another golfer mentioned, whose career went downhill after starting stack and tilt. You can see that at the start of the shaded area there, he's around 200 in the world in the black, and you can see how that progressively moved up in his time with Mike and Andy. Did drop off slightly towards the end, but then again, after he left Mike and Andy, you could see it drop off. I know he did get it back a little bit later on in his career, but certainly you could definitely see the pattern there. And I think when you look at these facts, you can't argue, right? They're playing good golf.
Yeah, to me, this one and Troy are the 2 biggest shames
Yeah.
Aaron's a really, really nice guy, and I like Aaron a lot. He's fantastic and one of the nicest guys you'll meet. But his golf swing was so good, and he just had a little bit of alignment issues where he couldn't quite they didn't quite get it, and it's tended to hook the driver just a little too much. But they were really working on getting that, and it was close, man. I would have loved to see this pink graph just extend out a little bit longer. I would have seen Aaron there just another year. I think
just to see.
Big difference.
You never know what would have happened.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. No. So, okay, guys, we haven't got long left. So if you've got any questions for anyone, just pop them into the chat. Mike Bonavian's joined us. So, hi, Mike.
I wonder if Mike's wearing his tux this evening.
I've got a feeling he's not wearing his tux today.
I say this evening, it's the middle of the morning thing.
Good point. Yeah, it's a good point. But it's a Sunday. Steve DeMarco.
The gears stuff that Michael has, those are all, again, facts, right?
Yeah. I think I noticed some comments that we were talking about the going back to the Chambly comment about the lean left and all that sort of stuff. I noticed Mike posted some statements about the movements of Bryson and Tony Finau, how their pelvis and shoulder center moves slightly towards the target in the backswing. What do you think of Bryson's swing at the moment, Steve?
I just saw it last night. It looks like he's just trying to hit the ball as far as he can, which unfortunately with the PGA Tour right now, that's kind of what they're kind of branding, smash the ball. But this week, I think they're at Harbortown, something like that. It's a different type of golf course, and he's still doing pretty well on it. So I don't know. I know the guy is smashing the ball, and it looks like he weighs about 300 pounds, but he is smashing it.
Yeah, and he's absolutely killing it. He's doing okay this week as well. I think. I watched a little bit just outside the top 10, I think.
Yeah. Especially somebody like Troy. Where's Troy now? I remember when Troy left, and I remember speaking to his new instructor at the time. He had asked Andy a couple of questions on the range there at Riviera, and I was like, does Troy not like $4 million a year? That's the only question I had. Is $4 million not enough? Being in 30 pretty easily, being a mediocre at best putter.
Yeah.
Is that not enough? It's like, what are you going to go find out there and unfortunately he didn't find anything. He found his way back to, whatever job he's doing now. I don't know, but I haven't seen him on TV in a long time. And Troy's a really nice guy too, but unfortunately I think misguided.
One of the things that always stands out for me, I asked Andy this a number of years ago because it intrigued me, and stack and tilt gets probably a slightly more of a rap, if you like, for when a player leaves, for some, again, because of the early controversy surrounding it, possibly because it's a name rather than an individual. It maybe gets a little bit more of a bad rap. So, Aaron Baddeley left stack and tilt, Mike Weir left stack and tilt. You don't quite hear the same thing even this week, like Justin Rose left Sean Foley. Okay, that's not considered the same thing for some reason. But I was going to make the point that I said to Andy, I asked him 5 or 6 years ago, how has this all played out in your mind? Is it as you expected? And to paraphrase, I don't want to put words in his mouth specifically, but paraphrase, it was something like, I saw everything as it is. I just didn't imagine people would leave when they got better. That part about a player leaving when they were doing so much better and doing well, he's couldn't really ever fathom. He couldn't get his head around why that would happen. So what you just said there about Troy triggered that in my mind to say that, because I think golfers on tour are, it's a bit of an echo chamber out there, isn't it? And there's people talking. I think Steve asked earlier, is there peer pressure? Steve DeMarco said, is there peer pressure an issue on the tour? I think, you have a couple of bad weeks, your caddy starts nudging you, so-and-so says these guys aren't who you should be working with. And it kind of snowballs quickly out of control. I don't know if you have anything to say on that, but that's something that Andy said to me that really sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, that's something I've never understood also, is if you're improving, why would you ever leave? That just doesn't quite make sense. But to your point, there's a lot of people getting in these players' ears, whether it be a
Yeah.
wife, caddy, a player. Oh, I don't see anybody practicing like that. I remember Charlie Wee was a little embarrassed the way he was practicing because he didn't see anyone doing the left tilt on the backswing, right? So he would do it kind of pretend he's yawning, and then he would left tilt and extend the turn real quick just to make sure no one was looking. But also with tour players, part of what made them really good also is, maybe trying some new things. Okay, this works, and listening to these people. But at the end of the day, sometimes isn't the best thing.
Yeah.
You
All
would
right,
think
just
they
look at.
results and bank account. Hey, I've got $5 million, and their big part of it is because of these two guys. Why don't I keep doing that? That's just me, though.
Yeah, I totally agree, Steve.
Yeah.
Just finishing up with the guys in the chat here. So Stuart says, where do you get the DVDs and book from? So I would go onto the Stack and Tilt website. You can sign up on there and purchase the book and DVDs, I believe.
Yeah, and the DVDs are a download, just in case you didn't realize that as well. So it's an immediate download. It's not like you have to wait for them to be delivered.
Yeah.
And you guys as instructors, I mean, how much easier is it when a student comes to you and they've read the book or they watched the DVDs, and now you're getting into more specifics and you're not really talking about the basic stuff? So I know on my end, like that makes it so much easier because now we have a little bit of a common language, and you don't have to take some of the lesson talking about in certain points. I don't know about you guys, but from my experience, it's been really helpful when people actually have viewed those things beforehand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think one of the reasons why I started my videos was because of that reason. You'd get players coming for a lesson and they'll see something online on YouTube or wherever it was where they're trying to copy that move. And then I'll tell them the opposite of what they've just been watching.
Right.
So they find it hard they don't know who to believe, right? They've seen someone say something on YouTube. They take that as that's what you have to do. And as we know, there's some good information, there's some not so good information out there. So I think one of the reasons I started doing my videos really was to just put out what I believe they should be doing, and hopefully some of the students do follow that. I know some students come and see myself and Rob because they watch our videos, and I think that helps as well. But the first thing I would always say to people that are new to the system is to read the book, try and visit a Stack and Tilt authorized instructor, and if you can, get the DVDs because I think they're great.
I think when Andy does a clinic, we done Stack and Tilt camp with him, was fortunate enough to do the one, Steve, where I met you in Palm Springs, and the ones that we've done in Europe, Nick. When Andy does that first morning clinic with the group and takes a good 90 minutes, I suppose, to go through from the beginning, right? He gets the chance to lay it out. And after that 90 minutes, you're so much further down the road with the student. So once you're in the lesson part, like, you remember that piece on the grid. Yeah. So you remember how the hands move inwards. Yeah. Okay. So that's the bit we're going to practice. You don't have to start explaining like why that is and taking that away from the lesson. It's that bit's already in there. And we've had people, good friend of ours, Nick Attila, who's attended multiple camps, and in some of your videos, I know you've interviewed him. It's like that each time he comes back. Yeah, it's an education. That's one of my favorite Andyisms, right? It's you don't need a lesson, you need an education. That's golf. I mean, that is one of my favorites. I think it just speaks volumes about what golfers really need, and yet they're told to go and have a 5-minute, quick tip, grab a half-hour lesson here, grab an hour lesson maybe once a year, that kind of thing. It's just it's not the way it's going to work. You need an education, and that takes time, it takes investment. Anything that's worthwhile takes the time to put in, and you get the reward.
Especially in a half hour or an hour setting. I mean, you only have 30 minutes to get a lot of information or something to this person. In something like that situation, like in a half hour, you might not even have time to lay the groundwork. It's just like, all right, you need to do A, B, and C. And I don't really have time to necessarily explain why those things, maybe a little bit, but just do A, B, and C. But if they had that knowledge beforehand, they would understand why they need to do A, B, and C.
Yeah, and they'd stay on track better, wouldn't they? I think that's a great point. You tell someone to do something that works for a while, and then they stop doing it, stops helping, their improvement declines, and they kind of forget they don't really know why they were told to do it, so they're easily led down the next path, like, try this now. Whereas if you had a bit of the background and a bit of more of an understanding about why you were told to do that, I think you stick with it better as well.
Or I just had this conversation with a student yesterday, or he might even start overdoing some things.
Yeah.
What I was trying to explain to him is, you used to be a slicer, right? This guy used to slice the beans out of it. Now he draws it. Now he's drawing it too much. I go, your old, let's call them fixes, aren't necessarily the right fixes anymore. It used to be put your weight forward, take your hands in, tuck your butt and extend to help you draw the ball more. Well, maybe you're doing too much of that now. Now you need to do some other pieces. So unfortunately, that's kind of the hard part of learning as a student too, is, when is too much, when is too little.
That's the importance of having a system, right?
Exactly. Or a coach, or watch the DVDs to help you with that.
So Rob is dressed up today, apparently, according to the comments.
Yeah, I saw that comment. Thank you.
Is that because you got the collar on? You got the collar on the shirt. And,
I made an effort today.
And Michael and Avian, no tuxedo this morning. However, happy Father's Day to the dad. So yeah, happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, Dad, if you're watching. I'll give you a call in a minute. It's quite late here in Singapore. Question for Rob. Now that Singapore is open, is Nick going to shave his hockey playoff beard? And is he bulking up like Bryson DeChambeau?
Yeah, we've spoken about Nick's beard, Steve. I think it's staying. Right?
It's staying for now, yeah. I went to the barbers yesterday, and there's a plan.
Oh, okay.
There's a system.
The system, yeah. It's built in. Nick in a muscle gamer, blah blah. And finally, guys, just to finish up here, great comment from Steve DeMarco. Just want to say that Steve Holmes is a great golfer and teacher, but a better person. So really agree with that. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for coming on. It's been great to chat with you and with Rob as always.
It's been awesome. It's so good to see you again, Steve. It's been such a long time since we hooked up in Cali, and
I'm looking forward to our next stack and tilt camp and getting out there and getting after it.
Hopefully it will be sometime in the near future. Who knows?
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that. So thanks, guys. Really appreciate that for joining us. And thanks, guys, for watching.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot. See ya.